12 o'clock on your Thursday afternoon. Some of you might be kind of like me and say, all right, noon on a Thursday, that's officially the start of the weekend. And then some of you might be like, no, that is very incorrect, Gunner. Thursday at noon is not the start of the weekend. It's all in the eye of the beholder, how you want to choose your life. For me, even though I'm here, Thursday at noon, kind of like the start of the weekend, because we have football tonight. Whether it's a little college, whether it's a little NFL, you can get some football tonight. We're wrapping up the Major League Baseball season. We're getting ready for Ryder Cup tomorrow. We have not talked, actually, about the Ryder Cup and what's going on up at Bethpage Black as we get ready to take on the Europeans. That's right, the mean, nasty, dirty Europeans. Got to take them on in the Ryder Cup and bring that thing back home in what should be a fun event, 7 a.m. Tomorrow morning. I know that's when coverage starts, and I got to admit, I'll be up and watching that. I've gotten into this Ryder Cup. Maybe it's because of the lifestyle I'm having to live now. I'm spending a little bit more time in this recliner. But watching the Golf Channels live from Bethpage Black, live from the Ryder Cup, and keeping up with everything going on up there. And they had the opening ceremonies yesterday. They moved it up to yesterday because of inclement weather today. So you had Keegan Bradley and Luke Donald both doing their speeches and giving out their love and hugs to everybody. And it's going to be a great sports weekend across the board. Like I said, if you're into football, you've got maybe the best college football weekend of the year. We'll see how things kind of continue to evolve and turn out as we go over the next 9 weeks. So you got great college football tonight. You get a little bit of college football if you want to get into it on ESPN as East Carolina hosts Army tonight. So maybe a game that draws a little bit of your interest up there in Greenville. Maybe you want to go NFL tonight. And you got some NFL tonight with Arizona and Seattle taking place in the NFL. That game will be in Arizona tonight, so you can catch a little bit of that. Maybe see Nick Eamon-Warry for the Seahawks if you want to go down that path. And then, as I mentioned, you've got a lot going on with Major League Baseball right now. Pennant races slowly wrapping up. The Braves decided to get hot at pretty much the wrong time. You know, when there's no pressure, when they've officially eliminated themselves, the Braves are like, I got an idea. Let's play really good baseball right now. And they lost yesterday, obviously, to end that win streak. But Major League Baseball coming down to the final few days. And as I mentioned, Ryder Cup taking place as well. So a great sports weekend. Maybe not something you'll see on TV, but college basketball getting underway as well. No, not actual games, but practice for the season. And coming up today in about 2 hours, 2 o'clock today, Lamont Paris will join us. We'll talk a little basketball today. Well, not only will we get you ready for South Carolina and Kentucky, but we'll talk a little basketball today, as it's going to be an interesting season for Coach Paris and that men's team. So many new faces. You're going to have to buy, if you go, you're going to have to buy a brand new program. You're going to have to learn everything. But a really interesting team that I think in scouting these players and talking with people fits precisely the Lamont Paris idea for a basketball team. Like, if he was to draw up a blank sheet of paper, or take a blank sheet of paper and draw up his ideal basketball team, I feel like he's got really what he wants. Maybe didn't have it last year. Maybe thought he had it, realized very early didn't have it. But this year, I think you talk about shooting, you talk about high basketball IQ, you talk about the ability to pass, mixed in with a little bit of athleticism. I think he's got that, and we'll talk a little basketball as well today. And again, Lamont Paris will join us coming up at 2 o'clock. We'll also listen to some South Carolina coordinators from yesterday. Mike Shula and Clayton White speaking. Can't imagine right now a man. I know Dabo's under the gun up there in at Clemson. Mike Shula down here is that the fan base on him. Shane Beamer on Tuesday mentioning angry fans. I think angry fans are actually angry at Mike Shula, what he has done with Lenore Sellers, unfortunately, what the run game has become. But we'll let you hear a little bit from him if you haven't already on some of the issues. One of them, running backs, something that I've talked about this week. Again, I'm not trying to give the offensive line a pass. The offensive line has got some serious issues, and I don't know if the offensive line issues are addressable. I don't know if that's a word either, but I don't know if you can address those situations this year. Maybe you can, but it might be something as simple as a new voice, new coaching, and in my opinion, you don't make that change 4 games into the season. I don't know anybody else on staff. Look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know that staff well enough to say that there's a backup offensive line coach in there that if you're that unhappy with Lonnie Teasley, you can say you're out. Hey, buddy, you're in. You're coaching the line now. But to me, it's kind of a ride with who you brought kind of deal. Lonnie Teasley's the offensive line coach. However he speaks to them, however he coaches them, that's what you got for the first 4 games. That's what you're getting for the next 8 games, hopefully a 9th game moving forward. But I don't know if that's fixable. And quite frankly, as a recruiting nerd, as a former recruiting guru and a recruiting nerd, I do put stock in recruiting rankings. South Carolina's recruited way too well, at least according to the rankings, has recruited way too well to have these issues on the offensive line. You should be able to find 5 guys on that offensive line. To see to see Josiah Thompson basically take a step backwards, very, very concerning. So I do believe there are problems with the offensive line, and I'm not trying to convince anybody otherwise. But I'm also not impressed with the running backs. In this day and age of college football, in this day and age of the way defenses are and the speed, I was telling somebody this, defensive linemen in the SEC are absolute freaks. Human beings are not supposed to move, run, jump, cut, be as athletic as SEC defensive linemen. Yes, I know there's a couple in the Big 10, Big 12, ACC, but if you talk to most coaches, what separates the SEC or what has in the past is the athleticism of defensive linemen. You're talking about guys that are like 6'5", 320 pounds, 330 pounds, running obscene 40 numbers, being able to come off the edge, some of these freak defensive ends. So you have to have a running back who can make a guy miss in one-on-one situations, who can make a guy miss in the backfield. We sometimes get caught up, and I hear people say, man, those Sean Elliott 2010, 2011 lines, 2012 lines, they were pretty good. No, you had a running back who knew how to make people miss. Go back and get a little nostalgic. Go back and watch a little bit of Marcus Lattimore. Those lines weren't particularly great for him, but he knew how to make one dude miss in the backfield, which sometimes resulted in a 30-yard carry, sometimes resulted in a 3-yard carry. But Marcus Lattimore, and on top of him, followed by him, was a guy that I think is one of the most underappreciated Gamecocks of all time, was Mike Davis, the Mike Davis 2.0, who actually, to go down a whole nother path on you, I sometimes side with his anger at Steve Spurrier for not getting the ball enough. But South Carolina at that point had some really good running backs. Throw Brandon Wilds in there as well as guys who could make people miss in the backfield, who didn't necessarily need to have openings, to have running lanes that you or I, us athletic people, could run through. You got to have guys who have great vision. And there's been times this year where there have been holes, there have been opportunities, and both Rasul Faison and Oscar Attaway have just zeroed in on the rear end of a guard or center and run right up behind it when there's been a hole left or right. So that's got to improve a little bit, and we're going to let you listen to Mike Shula talk a little bit today about running backs not breaking tackles as well. Also some leadership discussion from Mike Shula. I'm kind of interested to let you hear that and discuss that as leadership on the offensive side of the football. And then we'll hear some stuff from Clayton White as well. He's got a big task this weekend. That defense has got to be able to tackle better. Absolutely has to tackle better. And you're going to go against a Kentucky team whose bread and butter is being physical and out-physicaling you for 60 minutes, coming in and just wearing you down. They're going to run the football. They're going to do some play action. They're going to ask Cutter Boley to hit you with a pass 1 or 2 times that you're not expecting. But Kentucky comes in here, and that's what's made this series over the last 10, 15 years maybe a little more intriguing. is the style of football Kentucky plays and how it's equaled out, unfortunately, with the Muschamp style and with the Beamer style really over the last 10 years, and how Mark Stoops' brand of football tends to allow these games, these particular games with the Gamecocks, to be a lot more competitive than we saw really from about, 2000, from about 2000 to 2014, when Steve Spurrier, both at the end of the Lou Holtz era, and both Steve Spurrier were having their way with the Wildcats. So we'll get more into that as we roll along throughout the day. Tyler Hitt will be with us here in about 20 minutes, as you just heard. If you were listening, he and the Gamecock Central guys were all out there over at Firehouse Subs right across from Lexington Medical Center. So I'm sure he will be bringing some subs back for the rest of the station, and we'll get in here and we'll talk with him throughout the afternoon and kind of get his take again as we get you set for football tonight between, depending on what you like, East Carolina and Army. If you want to go the college route, or if you want to go the NFL route, Arizona and Seattle. And again, if you want to go that Seattle route, maybe you want to check out what a former Gamecock, Nick Eamon-Wari, is doing for the Seahawks and maybe get a little nostalgic there as well. So, again, a lot to do. So, we'll roll along. If you want to weigh in this afternoon, certainly love to hear from you. 803-404-6100. That's how you can do so if you want to add something to the program. You're listening to Bill Gunner, Captain David Ayer. It is the Halftime Show. 12:17 here on a Thursday afternoon. Bill Gunner, Captain David Dare, be joined by Tyler Head, who is making his way back from Firehouse Subs here shortly. Again, want to remind you, coming up at 2 o'clock today, right here with Tyler and myself, Gamecock head men's basketball coach Lamont Paris will give us a little preview of the upcoming season. I want to hear his excitement. I know he is thrilled. I know he is ready to get things underway. Obviously, a bad taste in not just his mouth, but the mouth of all of the returners there from last season, coming off of 2 years ago, which was an epically great run by South Carolina, a record-setting run that saw them get back to the NCAA tournament. And then last year, you could fall kind of flat on your face. And so I know he's excited to get things going, and we'll talk with him coming up at 2 o'clock today to hear what he's got to say. Right now, talking some football, South Carolina and Kentucky. And so I side the biggest thing Saturday night is stopping the run. South Carolina's got to stop the run. They got to stop Kentucky. That's Kentucky's bread and butter. Put the game on Cutter Boley's shoulders. I think the majority of y'all listening out there go opposite of me. I think the majority of y'all say, no, we got to run the ball. We got to take the pressure off of Lenora Sellers. We got to open up some lanes. This offensive line has got to block people. And yesterday, Mike Shula was talking about the run game. All right, well, why? Why are they struggling to run the football? Why in year 5, with basically continuity at the offensive line position? Lonnie Teasley, by the way, has been here 5 years. Took over for Greg Atkins when Atkins had the health issues, I believe, in year 2. Why are they struggling to run the football? Here is Mike Shula yesterday talking with the media on struggling to run the football.
Yeah, I just think it was, well, number one, when you lose yards on early downs, then it's hard to run the ball on second and long. We just got to be better overall. I mean, it's all of us. It's coaching and playing better. It's up front. It's the backs. It's it's a little bit of all of us. It's frustrating because we had drives where we were moving the ball and got the ball in the end zone, and we had drives when we were moving it and found on the goal line and lose yards, and so it's just overall, I'm not going to say it's just one thing here or another, but yes, we definitely have to run the ball better and coach the running game better, and calling it better and have good balance, all that kind of stuff.
We shouldn't have this issue. I mean, it's one thing if you're not good, right? If you're just not good, okay, recruit better. You got to get your players in. I got it. Yeah, cool. All right, recruit better, get better players. It's year 5. This is a team that was supposed to be a playoff contender. This is a team that has, quite frankly, Lonnie Teasley has recruiting nerd here. Lonnie Teasley and Shane Beamer and this staff and whomever's involved, Sam Serby, have recruited the offensive line position the best I've ever seen. And I got into recruiting. I really got into it with J.C. Sherbert in about 2007, I think. And then before that, even when I was in college, I was a recruiting geek. I remember being in college on the old AOL dial-up and looking at recruiting updates on guys like Daryl Shropshire, Randy Jackson, throw some names at you, Woody Telford. Remember that now, offensive lineman out of junior college? Like, I remember being a recruiting geek back then. Guys like Shane Hall back in the early 2000s. So I always followed recruiting. This is the best South Carolina's ever done recruiting the trenches on the offensive side. And it's not really in question. You look at what they've done. They're going to have next year, providing everybody's on the team and everything follows up. You're going to have 2 5-stars on the offensive line. Or 2 5-stars in your offensive line room. I don't know what Darius Gray, if he'll end up starting, and who knows what Josiah Thompson does. I don't think they've ever had that. I don't think you've ever had 2 5-stars sitting in your offensive line room. You got a bevy of 4-stars. Marquis Anderson, Trovon Ball, obviously. You got other guys in there. Said Sherratt was a 4-star. Tree Babalade was a 4-star. Like, you've got, and I know recruiting rankings don't equal production, right? I get it. I've seen it. But this shouldn't be a talent issue. So now you fast forward. All right, we listened to Mike Shula, and as one of the texters weighs in here, Shula doesn't sound very confident. It also sounds like a guy who's either which is fine. Press conferences are what they are. You know, I don't need Shane Beamer or Mike Schuler or Clayton White or Joe DeCamillis coming in there and throwing players under the bus. Not in this day and age. Not with the transfer portal being the way it is. You offend a player, and you can say, well, the player's soft or whatever, but you offend a player, and that player could be out the door within a second, especially right now when you haven't played a full 5 games to lock them in on their season. But the bottom line is, you got to be selective in what you say to the media, but this is also a situation where, as I listened to Mike Schuler there, what's the issue? What is the specific issue? Because as I've said, I think there's more than one. I don't think it's all offensive line. I think it's running backs too. And Mike Schuler talked about that. Running backs not being able to break tackles. And he just gave you a little bit of an answer on what he thinks the problem is. I'm not sure we got the answer. But here's Mike Schuler also talking about running backs not being able to break tackles.
No, I'm not worried. Our guys can run. Our guys can run and run behind their pads and push the pile. Our guys can break tackles. Our guys can make people miss. We didn't as an offense collectively give ourselves the opportunity for those guys to do that. But you know, everybody's looking hard at their own selves. Like I've said before, our guys are great. They practice hard. They listen. They do everything we ask them to do. It gets tough when you don't have success, but even this week they're grinding, they're working hard, they're staying together, sticking together, and not just each position, but collectively as an offense. They've done a really good job, and hopefully it will continue to have good practice this week, and it pays off Saturday.
You know what? It's really actually, I'll just say this. It's simple. Home game, 7:45 at night. It's a prove-it game. And a lot of you may say, hey, Bill, they've had 4 games to prove it. This is what they are. You know, and this is the zebra. That's their stripes. That's who they are. I think that's the saying: zebra stripes, whatever. Maybe you're right. You're probably right. 4 games. I asked Tyler that on Monday. When do we know who someone is? Preston and I used to have that conversation. When do you know who and what a football team is in a season? But I'll say this: it's a prove-it game. And maybe Shane Beamer sees it the same way. I know he wants to run the football. I know that's what he wants to lead. That is what he wants the identity of the football team to be. A smash mouth, run the football, set up the pass football team. And Saturday night at home against a good, not great Kentucky defense, and that's what they are. Prove it game, right? You want to talk? You want to tell us? All right, go do it. Go do it with basically the season. You look down the schedule, and I'm not going to say I've seen this team get much better. Look, they've done things that at times in the past we didn't think they were going to be able to do. Beat Tennessee, beat a top 10 Tennessee team, beat a top 10 Clemson team. You know, things we didn't think they would do. They can do things. They can surprise us. But I feel like this is the prove it game for the year. And you've got to come out, and those 5 offensive linemen, whoever they end up being. By the way, injury report last night, Case and Henry on the injury report. I'm not trying to put Case and Henry down. I think, Bill Gunner, not Lonnie Teasley, not anybody else here at 107.5 The Game or Cumulus, I think that's addition by subtraction, because I actually think Tree Babalade is better over there at right tackle. It seems like he's been playing really well when he's been in there. Now, again, I don't do the pro football focus grades. I'm not an offensive line guru. It's just eyesight, right? Like, you get beat or you don't get beat. You stop your guy or you don't stop your guy. Pretty clear. He seems to do that a little bit better than Case and Henry. Not, again, to put Case and Henry down, but Case and Henry right now a little banged up, and Babalade has come in. It's really, quite frankly, been the left side of the line that has been a little bit more of the issue, for being honest. Sheds whoever's played that left guard spot to go along with Josiah Thompson. But Nolan Hay, who actually, again, eyesight, not a guru here. I thought Nolan Hay came in at center last week and was a step up over Boaz Stanley. I thought some of the things kind of came together. And I thought Stanley struggled at, I think it was right guard last week. But I thought, honestly, that Nolan Hay came in and did a good job. So I'm interested to see where they go with the center position. Do you go back to Boaz Stanley? Do you give Marquis Anderson a shot there? Travon Ball is a guy that was banged up last week. Not on the injury report, by the way, and was somehow banged up. But, again, you got guys. You got guys, but you got to find the right 5, and they've got to go out there and do the job. And that's what leads me to say, hey, Saturday night, and again, many of y'all might say, Bill, we're past that point. They had their opportunities to prove it. Well, understand. But I'll say Saturday night against Kentucky, against a defensive line that's going to be good. It's going to be an SEC line, but it's a prove-it game. Go out and prove it at home. 803-404-6100. We'll let you hear a little bit from Mark Stoops when we come back, what he thinks about the offense for South Carolina, also what he thinks about the defense for South Carolina. We'll give you the Kentucky side of things. You're listening to Bill Gunner, Captain David Ayer, Tyler Head on the way. It is the Halftime Show. Thursday, September the 25th here, 12:33 on here at 107.5 The Game as we roll right along, starting to really look ahead, break down, get into the deep analysis of Kentucky and South Carolina. Two people who never played college football, completely breaking it down, unlike anybody else that can do it right here on this station. Tyler Head, back in studio. I saw you with those Firehouse. Yeah. So be careful. You get mugged around here for food.
I don't know what's in the boxes. I just grabbed whatever's left over. So feel free to help yourself. Shout out to our guy Grayson who packed up our stuff and is bringing it in right now.
All right.
But, another successful operation at Firehouse Subs. Again, one that we talked about yesterday. You have gotten to know very well from your stays over at LexMed, unfortunately.
That's right. Right across the street. They took care. They were a big part of that 3.5 week stay that I had there. So good times today, and we'll continue to roll along here. We've been talking a little bit more South Carolina offense, and Tyler, I'm looking at this game. I'm trying to convince myself that it's the South Carolina defense stopping the Kentucky offense. I said that in the previous segment. To me, it's like, all right, well, you got to stop the Kentucky run. But I'm talking myself into it's the South Carolina offense being able to run the football that is imperative in this game.
Yeah, and you look at the numbers, and again, Kentucky's played 3 games. Only one of them has been against SEC competition, that being Ole Miss. The other 2 were against Toledo and Eastern Michigan, so not the best gauge of exactly what that team's going to be. But even through those 3 games, they have struggled a lot defensively. They struggle to stop the run. They struggle to stop the pass. They're good at generating turnovers, which is something you have to watch out for. But you feel like if there was going to be a game where Carolina maybe gets over the hump of running the ball, this might finally be it.
You agree with me as you were coming to Monica? Every game, every year stands on its own merit. Mm-hmm. Shane Beamer can say we were really good at running the ball last year, and they were.
Sure.
That was last year.
Yep.
Rocket Sanders is not coming back through that locker room door this coming weekend. Is this the prove-it game? Is this the prove-it game? Or do we already know? Do we just accept and be like, no, this team can't run the ball. The offensive line is not going to be able to block. The running backs are not of SEC quality. Is this where they're at? Or are we willing to say, no, this is the prove-it game? You got to do it at home, 7:45, Saturday night, against a team you should be able to do it against.
I feel like this is definitely the prove-it game. When you look at these 3 teams they have to start out SEC play, again, we think Vanderbilt's probably going to be a pretty good team, better than normal Vanderbilt standards. Missouri has a chance of being another 10-win-ish type of team based on what we've seen so far, and they may have the best player in the country in Ahmad Hardy running the football.
Well, he has really impressed you because you have really loved on that guy this week.
I can't help it, man. He might be my September Heisman coming up when we talk about that, sometime next week. And then you look at a team that is struggling a little bit more in Kentucky. That again, if we took the consensus, I think most people would say is probably the worst team in the SEC so far. So you kind of have a mix of a team we think's good, a team we think is pretty good, and a team we think is probably average to below average right now in the SEC. And if you can't generate consistent rushes against any of those 3 teams, then why would I think you're going to be able to do against LSU, Alabama, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, all those tough teams you have coming down the line? So, yeah, this is really kind of your last litmus test to prove that you can do it. And, again, you got 2 weeks off. So, maybe things can make some small marginal improvements in the bye week. But if you can't prove anything in the first 3 games of SEC play, I don't think you're going to be able to do that when it gets even tougher after the bye.
I think Mark Stoops is a smart football coach. I don't question his defensive mindset. Now that I say all this out loud, I do think Mark Stoops is a dork. I actually... 803-404-6100. Bigger dork. Eli Drinkwitz. By the way, I've come around on Eli Drinkwitz. I gotta make a confession.
He's backing it up.
I gotta make a confession. Yeah, 25-5 over the last 3 years. That's the 4th best record in college football. He's built a program. I think I might actually. I'm sorry, everybody. I think I've come around on Eli Drinkwitz. I can't on Mark Stoops. He's a dork, and I say this because he also, though, is really good at identifying football and understanding everything. So let's listen to him because he's talking about what he's seeing with the South Carolina offense under Mike Shula. Here's Mark Stoops earlier this week in his press conference.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, but there's a lot of things that carry over. I think it's very easy to see that the offense running through LaNorris, right? I mean, he's just a dynamic player, just an extremely talented player, very good. I think, you watch him in the pocket with a clean pocket, and you see the way he throws the football and the velocity that he has on it and the accuracy, very impressive. We all know what he can do on his feet, with either design runs or when things break down. He is so big and so strong, that he's tough. He's good in a lot of ways. So, play calling, there's obviously going to be some difference, but there's a lot of things that carry over as well.
That is and I want you to follow me on this. That's the problem with Lenore Sellers right now. And that problem is not Lenore Sellers. You heard what Mark Stoops and Brent Pry at Virginia Tech, I think, saw this. I think South Carolina State saw this. Vanderbilt. Stop Lenore Sellers, and you stop South Carolina. And that's why I think some of the issues he's had running the football has been there, is because all teams are going, just stop him.
Yeah. Again, as rightfully so, when you're making your defensive game plan, step number one is to take Lenore Sellers out of it as much as possible, and particularly when it comes to him using his legs. And you have to dedicate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys to make sure he doesn't kill you with his feet. That's what I think a lot of teams are willing to do. And you saw Missouri do that a lot last week with 2 linebackers where, even when Sellers did take off and run a little bit, there wasn't a whole lot of room there, and he was getting maybe 2-3 yards or skirting out of bounds or whatever it may be. And that's probably going to be the game plan, once again, when you talk about what Kentucky's going to try and do, because Stoops, like all these other coaches that going into these games this season, looks at that as a ticking time bomb. Like, at some point, he's going to go off.
Right.
At some point, he's finally going to hit his groove and go back to being the Sellers from a year ago. You just hope that isn't against you. So
as we're talking, we're having a sports conversation, something has occurred to me, and I don't know the stat. I don't know the number. I wish I did. And for whoever is out there that has far more free time than I do and can look this up and really break it down, I know some of you can be analytical nerds out there. I would actually like to know the percentage of times that South Carolina, that Lenore Sellers has faced a zone defense this year, as opposed to a man-to-man defense. Because I want you to think back to last year, and some of the runs he had were against man-to-man defenses. And what happens, as we know, is when you're a man-to-man, your back can get turned to the quarterback. So when he breaks the pocket on a scramble play, now there's more room to run. Maybe you're in a one-on-one situation with a spying linebacker, but you have more room to take off and run in those situations, as opposed to a zone where there might be 1, 2, 3 guys kind of sitting in an area waiting on you, that as Lenore starts to break to run, they can come up on you. And now in a man-to-man situation, you might be clear for 6, 7 yards in then getting into a one-on-one situation, as opposed to a zone, they're stepping up on you with 2 or 3 guys that are there to kind of corral you. And I'd be interested to know that number on what South Carolina's faced zone versus man defenses. Well, and with zone especially, if Sellers is drawing that interest in coming up back towards the line of scrimmage, then you have an open area there in the middle of the field for your crossers and stuff like that. That again, which it feels like there's been a lot of, which is another reason I say that.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where you get your completions, in that mid-range to guys coming across the middle and trying to find success that way. So, yeah, there are ways around whatever coverage they're putting on you where Sellers can be effective either with his feet or throwing the ball through the air, and we just haven't seen it consistently enough. There's got to be an analytics out there that tells you those kind of things. I'll see if I can find it. But, yeah, that's definitely an interesting question because, again, it seems like more of them want to be eyes on him, having a couple guys dedicated to him, and, from the South Carolina offense standpoint, trying to find those holes in the zone as opposed to, again, turning your back to him and then letting him take off. And by the time you realize he's off and running, he's already past the line of scrimmage and, going towards first down or whatever.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it out loud like that until I just said it. And part of the reason is Perry Orth, in my conversations with him, has discussed the way that Mark Stoops plays zone defenses. And one of the issues, especially late in his career late in his tenure as the head coach, that Steve Spurrier had is Spurrier liked to hit the chunk plays. And you, as Perry told me, you have to be very disciplined as a quarterback because Kentucky runs a zone, I think it was a cover 3, that basically takes away the chunk plays, and you've got to be disciplined to take 9, 10, 11 play drives down the field, and they're playing you in that situation. Let's hear, this is Mark Stoops talking about containing Lenore Sellers on Saturday night. Let's hear a little bit how he breaks it down.
And it's also very difficult. He's different. He's definitely different because he's one of those guys that if you sit back there and you give him the time, he will dissect you. So he can certainly throw the ball very accurate. It's a little different when you're playing a guy that is very, very talented in both, throwing the ball and running.
So again, the way I anticipate them playing is zone, a lot of kind of shorter zone. And what does that mean? You got to run the football early on to take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, you absolutely have to establish that. And again, when you have an established run game, that opens up more things in the pass game as well. And again, we know Sellers has the capability through the air, and that's what kept Carolina in the game last week, and with a opportunity to win it against Missouri last week. So if you can be halfway effective running the football, then you feel like the rest of your offense should flow pretty well after that. But again, when you become one-dimensional, it becomes a lot easier to figure out. And even as special as Sellers is with his arm, he can't do everything when you don't have a run game.
803-404-6100. South Carolina, Kentucky. We will see the Wildcats again next year. Shoot, we'll see them back here in Columbia next year. Rivalry? It has been. Is this game still a rivalry? We'll ask you that, and we'll break it down a little bit when we come back. You're listening to The Halftime Show. Thursday. That's right. Start of the week for me. I love Thursdays.
Yep.
Boy, don't send me on my rant though about. Now I'm 43. You're younger than me.
Yes.
To me, and especially in college, and I was just telling Tyler, I was down on campus today. Let me just say this, man. Kudos as a person who's grown up here, like lived here, went to college here, would park by Todd and Moore and have to walk to Frank McGuire Arena where my classes were, and like being down there. It was fine. It was fun.
Yeah.
But being down there today, I went with Lauren to Tropical Smoothie before we came here, and I had to grab. Real quick, we were in and out because I had a doctor's appointment, and then came here. And I say that because, I used that particular establishment because of that corner that it's on. It's beautiful down there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it looks like a college campus, whereas I feel like I walked through a bit of a war zone back 20 years ago, trying to walk from down there around Todd Moore up through there. And I was looking at it today. I was like, man, it looks pretty. But in my college day, Tyler, on Thursday night, you had actually really good college football games.
Thursday night used to kind of belong to the ACC back in the day.
And SEC had games.
SEC would have some games too, and again, Carolina used to start the season on Thursdays quite a bit, during the Spurrier era. And
we played number 2 Auburn in 05 or 06. A Kentucky game was a top 10 game on a Thursday night.
The famous Sandstorm game against Ole Miss. That was a Thursday night game too.
Yeah.
And you always look forward to those. I'm trying to remember because, the NFL, again, they've always had Thursday games on Thanksgiving. And I feel like for the longest time, it started like, okay, after Thanksgiving, they would play Thursday night games through December. And then I forget what year they went full-fledged on doing it every single week. It was probably a little over a decade ago, I would say.
Yeah.
And then, again, they just kind of have squeezed the life out of a lot of college football on Thursday nights, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. East Carolina Army, okay, tonight. I think last week it was an ACC game, and I was like, oh, I think it was last week. Might have been 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago was Wake and NC
That's
State.
2 weeks ago. All right,
and they had the truck that caught on fire in the parking
food
lot.
Truck out there. Yeah.
Wake blew that big lead.
Got out 14. Poor old Robbie Ashford. Yeah. But I say that just because Thursday nights have always been a lot of fun, and as I just mentioned, Andre Woodson and Kentucky coming in here back in the late 2000s and taking on South Carolina, top 10 game. It was a Thursday night. Eric Norwood was a monster that night. This has actually been a pretty good little series. I'm glad we're keeping it for 4 years.
Yeah, again, you look at two teams that kind of look across at each other and see themselves pretty close and pretty similar. Again, both teams always aspire to jump into that next level of the SEC with the Alabamas and the Georgias and then now Texas and stuff like that. And nobody's gotten there yet. Unfortunately, it's not, at least not on a consistent basis as of right now. But they always view, hey, if we can beat that other guy, if Carolina can beat Kentucky and Kentucky can beat Carolina, they say, hey, that's a step forward into making this season what we need it to be. And for both teams going into this game, I know we talked about it earlier on this week. I mean, it's really kind of must win for both of them, right? Yeah. I mean, Carolina, if you go in to the stretch run of the final 7 games, 0-3 in conference play, I mean, you're scrapping and clawing for a bowl game at that point. You go in there 3-2, you feel a little bit better, saying, all right, well, at least, we can see a win against Coastal Carolina, and then you got to find 2 more wins in there somewhere. But if you're trying to scratch and claw and find 4 wins in those last 7 games, that is a daunting task.
Well, here's the other thing about this series that's been a lot of fun, and I don't know if they'll keep it going for the next 4 years or not. It's been a tone setter. Mm-hmm. I don't know if people realize these two teams typically have played in September within the first 3 or 4 games. Now, we had the COVID year. We played in December. What was it?
23 they played in like November.
2 years ago. 2 years ago? It was here. Was that the last time here?
It was last time here.
Yeah, when
17,
they
14.
basically didn't let the game in before we put on Soldier Boy.
Yeah.
That was in November. That was, I think, the week before Clemson, if I remember.
That was in that, 3-game win streak right there at the end.
But typically, this has been a tone-setting game for the season. You play this one because it's Kentucky, and we look at Kentucky and go, well, we should beat them. Kentucky, even in their losing streak, Kentucky looks at us and goes, we should beat them. And it's kind of one of those things, if you win, you go, okay, we're above average.
Yeah.
And if you lose, you go, oh, boy, we might be below average.
Yeah, it really does. And again, the way if you win this game on Saturday, and again, winning regardless will feel good, but the way you win this game, if you do on Saturday, really kind of, I think, tells you a lot of what you're going to think about this team going forward. And again, we're going to have 2 weeks to marinate on this. You got 2 weeks to think about it before the LSU game. So if you went out there and you beat them by 20 points, 3 touchdowns or whatever, and you say, okay, all right, I think we're trending in the right direction here, and you feel better about your opportunity there in Baton Rouge. If they beat you by 7 points or 10 points or whatever, then it's like, oh, man, Baton Rouge is going to be a bloodbath. You know what I mean? So it really does affect the perception of, and again, I'm talking about the fan base here, but these athletes on the team also have, you know, their own ways of thinking about things, and that's got to be a little bit of a dig on them if they're coming off of a 3-game losing streak going into the bye, knowing what lies ahead, as opposed to going out there and winning and having a little momentum going into the bye.
We'll talk about it. What kind of does the way if South Carolina were to win, big if. Well, we'll talk about this in the next hour. That's a good point. Does it matter to you on Saturday night the way South Carolina wins? Will you take a 7-6 game? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. A lot to get to. Lamont Paris coming up at 2 o'clock today as well. It is the halftime show. 1 o'clock as we roll along on your Thursday afternoon. Tyler Head, Captain David Ayer, and Bill Gunner getting you ready for some Thursday night football. Arizona and Seattle, if you want to get into the NFL. Going to be, by the way, another fun weekend of NFL football. I got to admit, I've been a little more invested in the NFL this season. Not financially, thankfully, or fantasy football-wise, but I don't know, I've just paid more attention this year. And it's going to be another really good weekend, some really fun games coming up this weekend. The 1 o'clock window has Philadelphia and Tampa Bay down in Tampa. And then, of course, the afternoon games that will take place should be a lot of fun, highlighted by Baltimore and Kansas City. One of those teams, I don't know if you'd say they would be politely excusing themselves from the playoff race, but one of those teams is going to be 1-3, Baltimore or Kansas City, late Sunday evening. And so you've got those really fun games that take place. By the way, Sunday night, if you're into this kind of thing, Green Bay and Dallas play down in Arlington. So the NFL's got really good games this weekend. Kind of making up for what they're going to do to us next Monday night. We're being punished for reasons I don't know by 2 Monday night games. The Jets and the Dolphins, I feel like that's punishment for somebody, and the Bengals and the Broncos, Jay's Broncos. At least the Broncos are worth watching right now. But, yeah, enjoy your Sunday because your Monday night games are punishment for something you've done in a previous life.
Well, and that's the thing typically, and I do enjoy the Monday night doubleheaders because it gives you something different. And, hey, if one game stinks, the other one might be okay. But, yeah, obviously they couldn't have predicted that Joe Burrow would be injured and missing in this game, and you'd have a quarterback battle between Bo Nix and Jake Browning. So that's obviously not what they were looking for. But, yeah, you look at these 4 teams, and obviously the Broncos are showing a lot of promise, but the other 3, it's kind of like, yeah, I don't feel like you're going to miss a whole lot if you happen to do something else on that Monday night. And you hope the games are at least competitive, right? Because even between 2 not great teams, you can still get a fun, if not weird, game sometimes. And Jets-Dolphins on Monday screams like weird 16-13 type of odd type of game to me.
Yeah, something. At least the Dolphins, I think, are going to wear some type of new, different uniforms.
But they're breaking my rule, Bill. Do you know about my uniform rule?
If you don't have black in your...
Exactly.
If you don't have black... Some kind of, like, somewhere...
I don't think so. I think it's like white and teal, right?
Well, no,
like
a dolphin, an actual dolphin.
An actual dolphin,
the actual dolphin. Doesn't it got something
like
on it, like a spot or something?
Like a black strike on the fin or something maybe, but in their color scheme, no. So again, they're breaking my rule of if you don't have black in your color scheme, you can't wear black.
Totally understandable. So, but yeah, the NFL is going to be good again tonight. I'll tune in a little bit. I want to see what Nick Emmanwori looks like for the Seahawks. I really have not kept up with his season, how he's doing, to be honest.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance. And look, I don't have Red Zone or Sunday tickets. So I'll watch the games that are locally available. And unfortunately, the Seahawks have not been available yet so far this year. So I'm interested in watching them and seeing what Nick Emmanwori is doing within that defense in his rookie year. Obviously, high hopes for what he's going to bring out there to what looks like a competitive team.
Yeah, and by the way, they have Ernest Jones as well, former Gamecock linebacker, who's leading the team in tackles this year for them. So Emmanwori, just looking at the stats, I'll be honest, as Tyler just said, I don't have Red Zone. I've thought about it. I've thought more this year about buying it than I ever have. But Emmanwori with just 1 tackle on the season so far. So we'll tune in. I'll be tuned in to that tonight to check that out for between the Seahawks and the Cardinals. Again, also tonight, East Carolina and Army. I'll have that on. East Carolina is always a fun little program for me to watch because I saw games against South Carolina growing up in the 90s and certain things that I remember.
Sure.
In particular, the name that I think most people my age or slightly older remember, Scott Harley, a running back very similar to the Missouri running back this weekend who ran all over South Carolina and could not be tackled in I believe, a monsoon around 94, 95 at Williams-Brice Stadium.
I always enjoy watching the service academies. I'm a ball control offense type of person. It's how I play college football 25/26.
A lot. You play a fun brand of football. Huh?
I haven't told you about my record for a drive yet. 24 plays, 83 yards, 14 minutes, 57 seconds. So if you can eat up time and chew up a lot of clock, that's my kind of offense. And I love watching service academies. I went, before the season started, Army had a 12-minute drive in a game last year, and I pulled it up on YouTube about 2 weeks before the season started just to watch it, just to appreciate it again.
So
you're like North Texas or something.
803-404-6100. So basically, Tyler is the guy that plays with the Army or Navy and runs the triple option, and you just absolutely despise halfway through. Like, it's your buddy, but yeah, you're not airing it out, and you're not giving your chance for interceptions or
Plus,
anything.
things I don't run the triple option. I run pistol type of spread, but I just do everything short because all those lanes are always open. You the high percentage, the low percentage throws, I don't mess with those unless I need to. It's all dinks and dunks, inside runs, those kind of things, and hey, it works for me. It's fun.
803-404-6100. Looking up the injury report, I got a text in that tells me that Eamon Ward is still battling an ankle injury that he sustained in the opener.
Okay.
I didn't even truthfully, I looked at the South Carolina injury report yesterday. It didn't even dawn on me to look at the the Seahawks and Cardinals injury report to see.
Which, by the way, those injury reports are more detailed because they have to be.
I'm starting to want. Do we start to question these injury reports from SEC teams?
I do. I did that last year.
Yeah, is that kind of where we're at now at this point?
Because you've already seen the gamesmanship,
right? Like, what was it? Was the South Carolina Mississippi game last year that I think on the Wednesday injury report, Lane basically had the entire team lined up on. He had all of Mississippi, and then it slowly changed. And I only say that because last week, Travon Ball was never on an injury report,
right?
And then you get to the game on even if he's got a dinged up ankle,
sure.
And then all of a sudden you get to the game and he can't go.
Yeah. And again, the NFL makes you be very specific with it, and it all has to do with gambling reasons, obviously. And now you have that, playing more of a factor in college football, which is a big reason why these availability reports are there. But again, it's kind of like it's half enforced, right? We're like, all right, you got to put something out there. And it's like, okay, well, I can just list everybody's questionable. They're not going to ask me any specifics. And kind of goes back to the old days of Will Muschamp when, hey, what's wrong with so-and-so? Oh, he's got a leg. He's got an arm. He's got a head. You know what I mean? Like, we're not really learning anything. We just know, okay, this guy's banged up to some degree. And we talked about it earlier. Case and Henry, for those watching intently last week, had something going on with his shoulder because he had an ice pack on it. Okay, it's a shoulder-related injury, but that's not something that was told to us necessarily by Beamer or the availability report. It's just, oh, hey, he's banged up, and we'll hope to see him this weekend, though he's listed as doubtful right now. Yeah, again, I didn't even think to check the Seattle-Arizona injury report, but Eamon Worry is listed as doubtful for tonight's game with that ankle injury, so he's still out. I knew he was injured, but I didn't know he was still dealing with an ankle sprain there up in Seattle. So there's a little bit from that. Real quick, last night, or I should say earlier this week, because I want to give him a shout-out because I've been texting with him, Tony Annan's soccer team with another victory on the season. They're kind of rolling along at this point. Yeah, absolutely. Good for them, and I know we had him on right before you went away for a while, and was excited about what he had going into the season. So good to see them, start getting into some good wins. Yeah, they knocked off Queens back on Tuesday, 1-0. They will play on the road against James Madison, the second game of conference play coming up on Sunday. So I want to give Coach a shout out because also they had a great win. The night of the Vanderbilt game, I hate to say it, but they beat number 11 UNC Greensboro up there in Greensboro. So the season rolling along for them. 6-3-1 is the current record for our good buddy Tony Annan and that team. 803-404-6100. We'll come back. Let's look around at big picture college football. It's Thursday. We were talking about East Carolina Army, but I heard you and the guys giving some picks over there. Yep. A lot of big games this weekend. We'll get a little bit more detailed on some of the big games coming up this week and give our thoughts on that as we roll along on a Thursday afternoon. You're listening to Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave Adair. It is the Halftime Show.
Oh, we got a lot going on for you. Again, tonight, Carolina Calls with Shane Beamer and Todd Ellis. So make sure you tune in and catch that from over there at Backstreets Bar and Grill. Tomorrow, you can go hang out with Jay and Terry from 3 to 6. It's Savage Craft Ale Works, 430 Center Street in West Columbia. Go hang out with those two. And I always say, take a rotten tomato and throw it at Jay Phillips just for the fun of it. You haven't lived until you've thrown a tomato at Jay Phillips.
Do they have tomatoes there? Is that available?
Business would pick up.
I say I've been there. I don't recall seeing them.
That's why I say sometimes you got to take your own tomatoes. You never know.
So.
You never know when you're going to be out in public and see somebody you don't like. You want to throw a rotten tomato. Just have a bag always with you.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point.
You never know. So anyway, go by and see them. And then coming up on Saturday, 2:30. We got the Gamecocks Game Day pregame live from Jay's Corner, 1015 Rosewood Drive. Are you part of that?
Yes, I'm a part of that. Yes.
I'm out.
Yeah.
The only reason I knew this, I saw, I think, a tweet with you and Elijah that were in it. So
I think it's me and Terry this weekend. It was me and Elijah last weekend, but I believe Terry's back on with me this weekend. But I'll be there.
There you go.
There.
So go by on Saturday. Get out and start tailgating early. Weather, by the way, looking like maybe storms late in the game.
Yeah, I'm looking at that now. Just, again, we're kind of doing our show. Got some light rain. Looks like it's going to make its way through. And, as we get to kickoff, it looks like kind of a steady chance of rain. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to rain all day.
No.
And, again, we're still on the tail end of summer, so weather can fluctuate pretty quickly, and it could be bright and sunny the entire day. But, something to keep in mind, at least for the game on Saturday.
Yeah, again, it looks like maybe late in that game it could pick up a little bit is the way I kind of have read the weather. Have not done my meteorology report today. I've been kind of busy, but at least last night. So we'll see. But again, a lot going on around here. 3 to 6 tomorrow, Savage Craft Ale Works, 430 Center Street in West Columbia. Go see Jay and Terry. And then 2:30, stop by on Saturday and visit with Tyler for the pregame live at Jay's Corner, 1015 Rosewood Drive. Big picture college football. Who's been the most disappointing? You ready?
Ooh.
Give you 3 names.
All right.
Jeremiah Smith.
Uh-huh.
And Jeremiah Smith really hadn't been disappointing, but so much hype around him and just kind of hasn't really, I don't know what we expect out of him. Maybe I'm throwing him in there and I shouldn't be. But it feels like Jeremiah Smith, after last year, should be catching 5,000 touchdown passes and catching, 500 yards of receiving yards each and every game. Jeremiah Smith, Arch Manning.
Okay.
Like all the hype, all the circumstance of Arch Manning. So you look at those two guys in particular and what they've done. And then you kind of look around the rest of college football. Do you throw Garrett Nussmeier in the disappointing? Garrett Nussmeier and LSU are very interesting right now.
Yeah, disappointing wouldn't be the word. I'd say underwhelming.
Okay.
Considering what we expect out of him. And it's very much kind of in the same way with Sellers here at Carolina, where this is a guy that was lofted as a Heisman favorite, a first-round pick. And, depending on who you heard from, Mel Kiper, Field Yates, those kind of guys, a lot of people had him as their number 1 quarterback off the board in next year's draft, which is supposed to be a very strong quarterback draft class. And it just hasn't quite been there. Again, they haven't run the ball the way that they wanted to, so maybe that has an effect on it. But, them scoring 17 points against Clemson, okay, that's a good Clemson defense. You don't really think too much about that. But it does seem like they've been just kind of sleepwalking through their other couple games, and it took a pick 6 from their defense to really seal things against Florida, the other week. And they scored 23 points against Louisiana Tech. I know they put a bunch of points up on Southeast Louisiana, but, that's a FCS team, so take that, with a grain of salt, obviously. But as they're getting ready, to really get into the thick of SEC play with Ole Miss coming up this weekend, it's kind of like, okay, if you're going to kick it into gear, now's the time. So I wouldn't say disappointing when I talk about Garrett Nussmeier. I just go more maybe kind of underwhelming based on what we expected.
Okay. All right. So then go back. Where do we go with Jeremiah Smith on this?
Now, I actually looked it up. His numbers are actually good this year.
They're not bad.
He went over 100 in the last 2 games. That's against Grambling in Ohio.
that too.
No big deal. I think because...
correct me if I did. You know how Twitter is now with AI. The Grambling coach did legitimately say, like, hey, the best match is going to be the Battle of the Bands, right?
That's something else that you missed, because that was the same week that Carolina played SC State. And we used a lot of different sound bites from FCS coaches that kind of like, hey, we know what's going to happen.
Right.
We know what the deal is. We're getting a check, and we're trying not to get beat by 100, basically. And they got beat 70-0 in that game. And here's the thing about Ohio State. we've really only paid attention to them for 1 week because they played Texas, and then they were off this past weekend. So the 2 weeks after that, they played Grambling in Ohio, and nobody really paid attention because, okay, you're supposed to beat those teams by 1 billion points. And again, numbers-wise, Jeremiah Smith looks fine, but in that first game, he really didn't have the breakout performance that you thought he was going to have.
Had some drops, too.
Well, and it kind of, yes, the drops are definitely what stand out because Texas took him away in the semifinal in the Cotton Bowl last year. He had like 2 receptions for 30 yards or something like that. And look, they were bracketing him as you would the number 1 receiver and probably the best receiver in all of college football. But you know, you think about guys like that, like, okay, well, he can still go out there and make plays, but for whatever reason, Texas defense has Jeremiah Smith's number, and that's really the last time a lot of people saw him play. Now, as we get into conference play coming up here, as these weeks go by, I think those numbers will tick up a little bit and be like, okay, there he is, because I legitimately thought he had a good shot at winning the Heisman Trophy this year because it takes a special receiver like Devontae Smith a couple years ago to just have absurd numbers, which he had last year. But when you have the momentum of last year coupled with what we think he's going to do this year, I thought he has a good case for it. But again, he's just kind of been in the shadows for the past couple of weeks.
He's got a chance to bust out this weekend. You're right, 20 catches on the year, 315 yards, and 3 touchdowns. But as you mentioned, the vast majority of that coming against Grambling and coming against Ohio. The Texas game is what stood out to me, and he had multiple drops in that game. Nussmeier, I think, is interesting because it feels like Nussmeier hadn't had a bad year.
No.
But it feels like I should be expecting more from him, and we get to see him in 2 weeks.
The word I like to use is like lazy or sleepwalk because he hasn't had like bad games necessarily in the offense.
No, and he got a lot of love for that Clemson win.
He did get a lot of love for that Clemson win. His numbers are very respectable in that game, but you know, since then, 237, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. 221 touchdown, 1 pick, 273, 3 touchdowns against Southeast Louisiana. You know, he completed just a tick over 50% of his passes against Florida. So it hasn't been like mind-blowing, right? And I think when you couple that with like the way John Mateer was playing up until his now injury, obviously, it feels like Nussmeier has kind of fallen into the shadow a little bit in terms of quarterbacks that we're talking about. And it is really weird because, you know, we talk about Sellers, Nussmeier, Arch Manning, Cade Klubnik, all these quarterbacks that we kind of deemed as like your top 4 to 5 in college football that aren't really living up to that right now. It is interesting that that's happening kind of across the board.
So Jeremiah Smith's got Washington, and that's going to be a 3:30 game out there, and that's a game I heard you and the fellas talking about it. Sounds like y'all were not leaning Washington, but kind of like, hey, keep an eye on that one.
It's like a 7-point spread. It's kind of like
7.5.
And again, you're traveling out there, so and they're coming off a bye, which helps. So it's like, okay, this could be tricky. We'll see. I still think Ohio State is good enough where that shouldn't be a problem.
I think when you're talking about a young quarterback like Julian Sayin, you go, okay, what are you going to get?
Well, that's the thing is, you know, they obviously won the game against Texas, but like he really didn't do that much better than Arch Manning, right? It's not like he went out there and lit it up for 350 and 4 touchdowns. It was like, okay, he played slightly better. He didn't turn the ball over, so that's good. But, yeah, nobody's looking at him like, hey, wow, this guy, Heisman favorite type of thing. And, you know, he's obviously being assisted by having the best wide receiver, 2 of the best wide receivers in the country when you add in Cardinal Tate, you know, as well. So it's like, okay, how much is he actually doing? We don't really know.
Okay, so I'll give you Smith. I'll give you Nussmeier.
Yep.
Now, by the way, and where I'm going with this is you look at this weekend. Jeremiah Smith going to Washington, great chance to break out. Nussmeier, they get Mississippi. Great chance to break out. Mississippi favored, by the way, in that game, and we know what's going on with Lane and Will Weeks, or was it Whit Weeks?
Whit Weeks, yeah.
All that, oh boy. And then Arch is on a bye week. Let me give you a 4th player.
All right.
Big opportunity to break out this week. Really, last year at this time, it was his coming out party. On the season, 10 catches, 195 yards, and 2 touchdowns, Ryan Williams. Disappointment? Or do you look at the back end of Ryan Williams' season last year and be like, nah, this is about right for him?
I would say it's about right because, again, he exploded on the scene last year. And that Georgia game last year, which was, I think, right about early October, late September, right about this time, was when he, you know, had that phenomenal catch that ended up allowing Alabama to win the game after Georgia had taken the lead. And people,
I'd just tell you this, it was the week before, because Alabama won that game and then went and lost to Vanderbilt.
Yes, because Carolina was on a bye that week, because that was the Vanderbilt game was the same day that South Carolina lost to Ole Miss. And when you go back and look at last season, that was kind of his last, like, wow game. Like, his numbers after that were respectable to just kind of below average. Like, and again, when you have a receiver that special, they're going to key in on him. They're going to try and take him away and try and, bracket him, put two guys on him, and really focus their attention on that side of the field and make you beat them with the other guys like Jeremy Bernard and stuff like that, which is what other teams did. But again, there comes a point where you say, well, that guy's special enough. He still should be able to make plays. And really, and I know, they played whoever last time out when he missed one game after the Florida State game. But last time they played, he put up good numbers. But again, it was against not a great opponent. But yeah, I just kind of think it's more in line with what he did on the back half of last year, where I don't think the expectations were nearly as high going into this season because the larger sample size was just like, he was good, but he wasn't elite.
And I'll throw you one more.
All right.
I have fifth one.
All right.
Is he the most disappointing? It's a quarterback up in the upstate wearing orange. You mentioned his name. You're right. Garrett Nussmeier, Lenore Sellers, Cade Klubnik. I'm trying to stay away from Sellers. Sellers, I don't think has been disappointed, but Klubnik, Nussmeier, Manning, Sellers. Those were the four dudes this year. And Klubnik's now the head man of a 1-3 team. Clemson fans are ready to see the backup quarterback.
Yep.
Like it's hard for me to explain what's happening with Klubnik and what he does.
Yeah, and I think the disappointment comes a lot from the fact that he made such significant strides last year. He had ups and downs in his first 4 years as a starter back in 2023, and Dabo got on him for making the wrong decisions and thinking he made the right choice on was it fourth down against NC State where he took the ball himself,
I think so,
and got sacked and they lost the game because of that or whatever. So he made some pretty bad mistakes in that first year, but last year was a significant improvement, which again, we generate a lot of our belief on what guys did the year before, and he made significant improvements in year two as a starter. So you thought naturally, with most all of his talent coming back, with the exception of the backfield, he was going to have an even better year number three, and it just hasn't been that as of yet. And again, in situations like late in the game against Syracuse where you still had an opportunity to get back into it, you throw a pick. You know what I mean? And kind of a bad pick at that. So it's like when in critical situations, he's not making the right decisions.
Hard to say. He's not the most disappointing player this season. Obviously, I think if he started to narrow down, it would be he and or Arch Manning. Klubnik's been in the spotlight a little bit more, obviously, with the loss to LSU, the loss to Georgia Tech, and now the loss to Syracuse. So he would probably take the cake on that. And you're talking about, again, a guy who some people said was going to be drafted ahead of Lenore Sellers in the upcoming 2026 draft. Some people thought was the Heisman candidate. And think about this for a second. All ththose quarterbacks we talked about, well, the three top, I guess you want to go three, even though he's now been knocked down a little bit. But the top Heisman contenders right now would be, Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah.
And John Mateer. I guess it would be top two.
Yeah, as far as quarterbacks go, as guys that I think have really stood out above the rest as right now. And again, with Mateer being out for to be determined right now, how does that affect things? I don't know. Again, and look, most years when we look back at, I always like to do the September Heisman of who's the most impressive through the first month of the year. Rarely does that guy go on to actually win the Heisman at the end of the year. So perceptions are going to change. And again, a lot of these guys have been playing, not credible opponents and putting up good numbers. So as we get into conference play across the board for everybody, I think the elites will really start to separate themselves in these next couple of weeks.
803-404-6100, how you can weigh in. Come back. We'll get into a little bit of Ryder Cup discussion as well. That gets going. We'll test Tyler's knowledge on some golf. Get into some basketball coming up later on this hour, and Lamont Paris set to join us in about 32 minutes at 2 o'clock this afternoon. You're listening to The Halftime Show.
Tyred here for our friends over at Old Timey Meat Market. South Carolina back at home this upcoming weekend, which means you have an opportunity to get out there and tailgate with your family, friends, and whoever else wants to come by to your tailgating spot. But if you're going to be out there tailgating, you need to make sure you have your right stuff to get the job done, and that means the best meats around, which come from Old Timey Meat Market. You'll find their shelves stocked with various cuts and grades of beef, pork, poultry, seafood, and exotic meat. Their selections are always fresh, never frozen, competitively priced, and of the highest quality. And if you need to grill, Well, you can go by and get yourself a Traeger grill because they have plenty of those in stock, as well as pellets, rubs, sauces, and accessories too. And you can come by the Old Timey Meat Market out in my neck of the woods in Lexington and check out their selection of Traeger grills. Old Timey Meat Market and Traeger grills, a perfect combination.
Don't forget about our craft beer card. It is the fall. Always a great time to go out and have a little I don't do the IPAs. I've never been an IPA drinker.
Okay.
Well, there was a day. There was a day in time. I switched over to the bourbon and switched over to the liquor and went more bourbon and water. But there was a day in time. I don't know if I feel like if I told Jay Phillips, Samuel Adams, he would get angry and be like,
"Oh, it's like a craft beer."
Yeah.
I don't think that qualifies.
Yeah, like that was. God. I mean, I say that was 15 years, 16 years ago. I've never after that. I've just never been a beer drinker. But I know a lot of people love a great craft beer, and especially during the fall, the weather starts to turn. You like to be outside.
Sure.
Well, we got a great deal for you. Go get your craft beer card right now, just $59. Go to 1075thegame.com, click on Sweet Deals. You can save up to $300. A lot of great establishments. You can go and pick out a beverage or two and give them a taste, and then you can call Jay Phillips and tell him what you think. So go check out our craft beer card. Go to 1075thegame.com, click on Sweet Deals, purchase you a craft beer card today, just $59. You a golf guy? Give me your background on golf here.
Yeah, and I'm more into the majors.
Okay.
So I pay attention at the most important times. I am excited about the Ryder Cup for this weekend, just the competition aspect of it, and seeing quite literally the best in the world, go head to head and represent, Europe and the United States, mixed in with everything else going on this weekend. So, it kicks off tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. So we'll have it on all day long. Hopefully the weather, cooperates out there, Bethpage Black, and we can have a good weekend.
Yeah, number one, I love Bethpage Black. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, Bethpage Black, what's a lot of fun about Bethpage Black is the fact that it's a public course. You can go up and play it. You got to get, obviously, up there early. There's a lot of stuff that kind of goes on in terms of how you get on the course. But it's made a name for itself through the U.S. Open and how difficult it has been to play in that particular environment. But with that being said, it's not set up like that.
Yeah.
This week, as a matter of fact, I think it was one of the people yesterday, one of the players, I can't remember exactly who, was saying it sets up for the long drivers this week. The rough is cut as low as they've had. Even members up there, I don't know if you caught this, even members or not members of the course, but even people who play it, they were like, hey, what are y'all doing with the rough here? This is not how we play it.
Sure.
When there's not major tournaments here.
Yeah, and I am interested in a course that's going to provide a twist and a challenge that maybe not everybody's prepared for. Because, again, these are supposed to be the best in the world, and, you got to see who can adapt as it's going along. I know it's a tricky course anyway, so, and again, if it does rain, you have some wet conditions, it's only going to make it even more challenging.
It's we're kind of waiting. First pairings will be announced. I've not seen them popped up just yet. They've got rainy weather up there today, and again yesterday they had the opening ceremonies take place. But this is an interesting. I'm always fascinated by national events.
Sure.
Like, for example, couldn't tell you anything about ice skating.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you anything about gymnastics. You put me in the Olympics, or not me in the Olympics, but you put the Olympics on, I'm like, we got it. And all of a sudden I learned the names of everybody, get into it. I'm always fascinated because, at least especially here in the South, the Ryder Cup occurs in September. We're fully invested in football. What becomes people's interest in the Ryder Cup?
Yeah, and again, I think you have a lot of very notable names in golf right now. Obviously, everybody knows what Scottie Scheffler's in the middle of, this incredible run going back for the past couple of years. Obviously, Rory accomplished what he finally did at the Masters back earlier this year, and his results have been a mixed bag over the course of the past couple months. But you have that name recognition and notoriety that, again, you're not talking about guys that rival Tiger Woods in popularity, but people that are well-known enough to catch people's attention, right? And I think that's what golf needs, is guys that the casual fan or the casual person interested in golf is going to say, hey, wow, he's playing this weekend. I want to go check that out to see him do whatever he does, or to see these guys go head-to-head with each other. And again, you're not talking about the same way you're talking about like Phil and Tiger back in the day, but these guys are very popular and very well known, where I do think they move the needle, outside of the golf bubble, which is what Major League, the PGA wants. The
start times and pairings will be announced coming up at 4 o'clock today. If you want to get at it and look out of this, and this is what I love. There are personalities involved.
There are.
And I've come a long way and circled many a time already on Bryson DeChambeau. And I'm starting to circle on Rory McIlroy.
Sure.
Like, I liked Rory. Now Rory's a whiner. Then we all loved for Rory when he won the Masters. DeChambeau, I thought he was a whiner. Then I love that he became a man of the people. He became a whiner again when he went to live. Still kind of a whiner.
Sure.
But he's become a man of the people. I think at least on Sunday morning or whatever, that's the matchup we want. We would love to see a Rory Bryson DeChambeau singles match take place.
Do you consider Scottie Scheffler's lack of a personality as a personality?
Yeah. Scotty's coming around because what you see, here's where Scotty's coming around on the personality, is he's having these press conferences where he's kind of talking about life.
Yeah.
And now everybody's like, oh.
Yeah.
Look at, and he's got the little child now. I think the child's name is Ben, I think. I can't remember. but he's at the child, and the child's like walking around on the green, just getting lost after he wins another major or whatever. And I don't think it's the golf personality. It's that we're seeing Scotty Scheffler as a father and a human being, and not as a robot golfer.
Yeah, he just seems like a normal dude. And it's funny because we're only born like 7 or 8 days apart. So I'm like, this guy's the same age as me, but he's accomplished 10 times what I'll ever accomplish in my life. So, I always find an interesting connection in that regard. And I think you and I talked about this before you went away, but the Happy Gilmore 2 movie that featured all the cameos from the golfers, and the fact that Scotty wasn't afraid to poke fun at himself for the arrest thing last year, I appreciated that because, again, he could be the kind of guy, it's like, hey, that was a bad day for me. I don't want to, bring that back up. He's like, no, it's funny. I'll play along with it, which I appreciated.
Yeah, stupid. It was stupid. We were sitting here. I'll never forget that morning. We were sitting here, and you're watching the news, and in this day and age, when something happens, especially on Twitter, you got to almost like verify.
Sure.
And you got to realize that. And but I'm with you. I think there are good personalities in this golf, in this Ryder Cup. It is fascinating to me that the Europeans take this thing so much more serious than the Americans. And I want to see if the Americans are going to take this as serious this year and where it means something, because they're getting paid this year.
Sure.
They're getting a nice little paycheck. Plus, they're getting money on top of that. They're getting a stipend. Plus, they're getting no money on top of that to donate. They have said to a man that they're donating all $500,000. That's what they've said.
Yeah.
But this was a big contention. Like the Europeans, and Luke Donald said something yesterday. We don't, and I forget I don't have it in front of me verbatim, but basically that they don't play this event for money.
Right.
And kind of looking at the Americans like, you guys over there, though, have to play for money after kind of a contentious little standoff where the Americans said, hey, we need to be paid to play in this thing.
Sure. Yeah, and that's an extra layer added to this thing. By the way, I'm with you. I love any kind of national things. I really loved what the NHL did with the Four Nations.
That was awesome.
Earlier on this year, and you can kind of get, hopefully, the same kind of vibe from this because, again, you're putting, your pride behind the American team. May not like all the American golfers, but, again, they're representing your country against, the Europeans. You want to see America come out on top. So I love when you can add that extra layer of the story into something like this. And, again, hopefully it's a fun weekend.
803-404-6100. That's how you can win. We'll come back. Let's talk a little basketball. Lamont Paris due up with us at 2 o'clock, but Tyler and I will talk a little bit about what we foresee coming and preview Lamont Paris coming up again, joining us, calling in at 2 o'clock. You're listening to the Halftime Show. 147 on your Thursday, getting you ready. A lot of football this weekend. Gamecocks and Wildcats, 7:45 Saturday night. Reminder, you can go visit with Tyler and someone.
I'm pretty sure it's Terry this time. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, we're pretty sure it's Terry. On Saturday over at Jay's Corner for Gamecock Game Day. We'll have the pregame show for you live. Go by and hang out with them. Say hello. Should be a fun day. Getting you ready for a monster matchup on Saturday night. A lot on the line. We'll talk more about it coming up later on in hour number 3, obviously, and all through tomorrow. But go by and visit them as we get you set for Gamecock Game Day. That'll be 2:30 on Saturday at Jay's Corner with our pregame show. But in about a month, a little less than a month and a half, South Carolina basketball will get underway. Now, they started practice on Tuesday.
Yes. Yeah, they did.
Started practice on Tuesday. Got an exhibition game coming up at First Horizon Coliseum in Greensboro against North Carolina State. And new North Carolina State coach Will Wade on October 26th. So they're getting ready for that. But they will open the season Tuesday, November the 4th against North Carolina A&T. And, you know, there's no other way to put it. It's a big season. Year 4 for Lamont Paris.
No, again, like we said yesterday, this is very much a prove-it type of year. Again, you earned yourself a lot of good grace with what year number 2 was. Look, year number 1, you don't say it's a throwaway, but you know there's going to be some growing pains, and especially for somebody that never coached at the SEC level before, Lamont Paris had to adapt, and he obviously did that well in year number 2, and they really knocked it out of the park with that very experienced portal class they brought in that year. And unfortunately, last year, you didn't get those same kind of results. And I think Lamont Paris wouldn't shy away from telling you that exact same thing. So, yeah, year number 4 is definitely going to be a huge one. And obviously, it has not gotten any easier in the SEC. Last year was the toughest year in league history, considering the amount of teams that you put in the NCAA tournament. And no reason to think that this year's going to, suddenly get any easier. So you got your work cut out for you. And, we were joking about it yesterday. This roster looks brand new. And in fact, between yesterday and today, they have updated the roster on the website with pictures and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, again, it's a lot of new faces that we don't know everything about, between freshmen coming in, guys from the transfer portal, and those first few non-conference games are going to be a big learning process for all of us, kind of figuring out what this team is, who's playing what roles, and what they might have cut out for them this season. Yeah,
I like the makeup of – I was concerned last year about the makeup of the team, looking at the talents. Now, the question becomes, how does Lamont Paris get everybody to gel? Yeah. You can have, Eric Musselman at Arkansas, when he was at Arkansas, had some really talented players. You couldn't get them to gel.
Sure.
John Calipari, when he's coached anywhere, Kentucky, now Arkansas, he's had super talented teams, but you can't get them to gel. And that's what Lamont Paris, I'm going to be interested to talk to him about, his philosophy. They didn't 2 years ago, they got to go on the Bahamas trip. I think it was Bahamas they went to.
It was.
But
because is it 2 or
it's every 4?
Every 4 years you go on one of those. Okay.
But my point was I couldn't remember what island they went to.
Yeah, I think it was Bahamas.
But the bottom line is that's how you get guys. You were able to get guys to gel. How, as a coach, do you do that in this day and age with limited practice time?
Sure.
And then obviously having to do it really over the course of about 4 months, June, July, August, September, get going in October.
And this year, now again, there were a lot of high hopes for Cam Scott coming in of what he could have potentially been, but year number 1 did not end up going the way that we thought it would, and he is back after taking a brief spell in the transfer portal. But year 1, you had G.G. Jackson. The past 2 years, you had Colin Murray-Boyles, who both ended up getting drafted fairly high in the NBA draft. Again, G.G. Jackson could have gone higher. He dipped a little bit there in the second round, but CMB obviously speaks for himself where he went. So you don't have a bona fide, high potential draft pick on this year's team, where I think that continuity is going to be more important than ever because everybody's going to have to do their job. There's not that, at least as of right now, that certified superstar that we think is going to be able to clean up some things that other guys maybe aren't doing so well.
One thing that I'm really interested to see is the return of Meechie Johnson as kind of the heart and soul of this team. That's what he was 2 years ago.
Yes.
That is precisely what he was 2 years ago. And I might, if I have time to bring this up with Coach Paris, I go back, there was an LSU game they lost at home. Mm-hmm. And Meechie didn't have a good game in terms of scoring and all that. But when he got injured late in that game, South Carolina kind of lost their way a little bit. They ended up losing that game. what is Michi's role now? You and I have talked about leadership.
Sure.
And how it is for him to come back in now, go back into that locker room and take that role of leadership and have that kind of swagger that he plays with.
Well, and again, if we get time to get into this, Lamont Paris certainly will. And, he dealt with some things off the court that didn't allow him to play the entire year last year at Ohio State. So what is this version of Michi Johnson that's coming back to South Carolina? We know what he is as a player, right? He has his ups and downs, very hot, very cold. One day he can go out there and drop 24, and the next day it may only be, 5 points.
Right.
So, how much of the offense runs through him? How important is he going to be to his team's success? We'll have to see. But I think the maturity aspect of it is a big question, too. And, again, he was a team guy and obviously wasn't a problem when he was on the team. But how much has his life experiences in the past year shaped this version that's now coming back to South Carolina for the second time?
The other question, for me, the question for this team will be ball handling, the point guard play. Now, you got guys who can handle the ball. Let's be very clear about that. There are guys, Eli Ellis, Michi Johnson, Mike Shamjans. I don't know if I'm saying that. I have no clue.
I think we just called him Mongolian Mike.
Yeah, I'm giving it a shot.
Sure.
The well-known the pronunciation guide here myself of 107.5 The Game. But I'm interested in terms of point guard play because that is what separated that 2023-2024 team. Talon Cooper was so good at running the team. Do they have that? Because I don't think, and Coach can disagree with me, it's his team. I don't think that's Michi Johnson's role.
Right.
I don't know if that's Eli Ellis's role. Who is just the point guard on this team?
Well, and I think, and again, look, we've been hearing about Eli Ellis for the past couple of years, and we've all seen his highlights from Overtime Elite and all that kind of stuff. Playing that role as a true freshman in college, especially in the SEC, is not easy. And what made Talon Cooper so great was the experience. Where he played 130-some-odd games before he ever got to South Carolina. And that's obviously hard to replicate coming out of the transfer portal. But you like somebody that is definitely seasoned, if possible, in that type of role. And again, like I said, Michi Johnson maybe doesn't fit specifically what you're looking for in that kind of role. But that would definitely be an undertaking if it was Eli Ellis that they chose to play that point guard spot.
I think he can. Don't get me wrong. And I think Michi can.
Yeah.
It's not. This isn't like, well, I don't think they're suited. I don't know if that's the best fit
Sure.
for them. And Mike Sham Johnson, Mongolian Mike, he's 6'9", big guy, can handle the ball. I've seen the highlights, adapt passer. But again, is that the best role for him? Now, they're going to have guys, 3 guys, out there, I think a lot, 2 guys at least, 3 guys a lot, that are ball handlers. But again, you look at how Eli wants to play, does that kind of putting him in a different position, does that suit him? I go back, I always wonder, did Dwayne Notice fit that role well enough for that Final Four team? He handled it behind P.J. Dozier, but when he had to be strictly the point guard, he wasn't quite as good as when they had P.J. and then they put Sindarius in there on that Final Four team. So we'll talk with Coach Paris coming up about this, get his thoughts and his opinions. I know he's excited. Saw the video. He swished one the other day in the video. Well, I'm going to ask him. 3-point contest. He or Kerry Rich? Who wins?
Good question.
Well, that'll be the one non-serious question we'll get because we got a lot to get to with them. Hour 3 of the halftime show, joined by Lamont Paris. Next, you're listening to Bill Gunner, Tyler Head, Captain David Dare. 2 o'clock on your Thursday. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave Adair, as we roll along. We are awaiting the phone call from head men's basketball coach Lamont Paris as he will get his team ready. 4th year. Time flies, man.
It really does.
Time flies.
It's back quick.
4th year for Coach Paris, and we will await his phone call. Otherwise, we'll track him down. Don't worry. I know how to find him. We'll track him down, get him on the airways this afternoon because I want to hear him talk about this team, and I want to hear his excitement for what he's got coming back as we get set for another season. I'm ready. College basketball is going to be a lot of fun this year. Oh, by the way, real quick.
Yep.
Yeah, you saw I tagged you in a tweet last night. We did have a coach.
We did, yeah. Believe it or not,
you didn't make it through.
A little off the radar compared to Bruce Pearl and Mike Gundy, but nonetheless, 3 days in a row where some coach has been let go or retired to some degree.
Yeah, so we didn't mention that was former Mississippi coach Rod Barnes anyway. But let's get out to the phone lines where the good man himself, Lamont Paris, joining us, and whew, I've never seen a prettier stroke than I did in that video that they put out for you the other day. That was a one-take thing, right? You kind of had to, one time.
I'd like to say it was one take, but just so I'm too prideful to say that it was one take. But I will say after the second or third one, it was 4 total. But after the third one, I was about ready to quit because I didn't want to. I knew someone was going to ask me, and I didn't want to say 10. I didn't ever want to say that.
It was a wing. It was a wing 3-pointer. It
was.
Yeah. Well, glad to.
And that was a good pass I got there. I got to admit, 2 out of those other passes were, a little questionable. If I get the seams thrown right to me nicely, I got to have the seams right.
I remember those days, Coach. I remember those days. Very, very good. Well, it's glad to have you back on. I know you're busy right now. You guys got going on Tuesday with practice, and let's just talk about it. It's a new year, but, man, a lot of new faces, new team, basically. Just your overall excitement to kind of have almost a new clay a new clay to mold and work with.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. It's extremely the level of the amount of challenge involved in it has increased as you got more guys. There's a couple times you look and you say, are there enough practices between now and the time that we play our first game to get it all together? And normally you have so many new faces. You say, okay, here's 3 or 4 topics. We can dust them off in one day and then spend these other days on the meat and potato things that normally take a little bit longer to teach. Now every topic that you go over takes a little bit longer to teach because you got 13 guys that have to learn it. So there's some challenges with that, but that therein lies this has always been an exciting time for me, but it's even more exciting when you, when you're facing a challenge like that and getting a group with this many new faces to come together is it's really exciting.
Coach, appreciate you taking your time. You mentioned a lot of new faces, but 2 guys that are returning, Cam Scott and Jordan Butler. And I go back to, I believe it was your midsummer, presser where you talked about those guys and their development process, taking off the training wheels and needing to flip that switch to get to that next stage. Where are they at in that process now as we approach the start of the season?
Yeah, they're making good progress. Both of them have had good days here and there, sprinkled with some days where there's still some challenges. And, I think the thing that you're trying to show coaches is reliability. And that's to say in a couple of different things that you can be counted upon to do whatever those are. And then that way when a coach needs those things to be done, you're in the game. And so those guys are still trying to on a consistent basis, show those things, but they've made significant progress. They'll be in competition without a doubt for a real role, a significant role on a team, and there'll be a lot of guys. We quite honestly, we got a lot of guys that can play, that I would feel comfortable putting in the game right now. The challenge for us as coaches will be that you have we probably have 5 guys that I would say are probably have separated themselves a little bit on most days. And then you got another 7 guys which normally it's not that number. You got another 7 guys, and I don't know out of those 7 guys who's number 1 and who's number 7. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity, and then, guys are going to have to just try to be consistent with what they're doing. But those guys are making tremendous progress. Miles Studi is another familiar face that's back with us this year, and so to have those 3 guys really be familiar with how we do things on a day-to-day basis and what the terminology is. Meechie Johnson obviously has been here before too, so you got 4 guys that know all that kind of stuff, and that's a huge advantage in terms of teaching.
Head men's basketball coach Lamont Paris taking a few minutes to join us this afternoon, getting ready for the start of the season. And, 2 years ago and that great run, one of the things you constantly pointed to was the experience of your basketball team. You had an experienced basketball team. You've got another experienced team. How much does that help you trying to gel this team, all these new faces, when you've got guys with a lot of college experience? You just mentioned Meechie. Miles Studi's been around for a while. I believe I'm saying his name constantly. Mike Shamvance, correctly or close?
Sharam Johnson.
Sharam Johnson.
Yeah.
There's a lot of. How does that help you gel this team for November?
Yeah, I think experience is a huge part of that. Just the maturity of being comfortable with yourself as a player. You're not always trying to prove something, so you're more likely to accept this thing that the coaches are telling you, or this role, or whatever it is. So I think in terms of a team gelling, I think that's a big part of it. If you have 15 guys trying to prove themselves, that's going to take a long time to gel as a basketball team. But when you have more guys that are comfortable in what they do and why you brought them here and what their role is expected to be, I think it helps in the gelling process without a doubt. That was probably the biggest factor of 2 years ago, was that team really did find its own way as a unit and communicating well with one another, feeding off of one another, encouraging one another, and that was a huge part of it. But there's no doubt that this team looks more like that team in terms of the overall level of experience. We have 5 guys that are or should end up 1,000-point scorers. We have more starts, guys that have started a game, total starts out of the entire roster than we've had. And so those things bode well in terms of, the game's gotten to where that's who's going to – the best team is not always going to be the most talented team in terms of raw talent or NBA prospects or whatever. It's going to be the team that plays well together and just comes together as a unit.
You mentioned experience. Meechie Johnson, how is that for him? How is his role? And what conversations do you have with him? Because I kind of mentioned 2 years ago, you had Talon, who was kind of the steady guy. You had BJ. You had a lot of guys. But Meechie was kind of the fiery guy. At least that's the way it came across watching games. He was that kind of emotional leader. Now he's got to reacclimate himself. It's not his team. To me, it's not like his team like it was 2 years ago. Do you have conversations with him, or how do you open up and say, Meechie, come in and do this or do that?
The landscape of college athletics has changed so much, and this will be a great story when this is all said and done, about a young man that ultimately found where his niche was and where he was loved. I said, I don't know if the fans need Meechie more or if Meechie needs the fans more. It's what a love connection that those two have established. But I don't think there was a lot of doubt. There's a guy, when I talk about being really comfortable, he's comfortable in his leadership role. He is far and away a leader on our team. He's a vocal leader. He's got tremendous energy. He knows what we expect of him. He's a hard worker. He understands what we are trying to get out of it. And I don't know if we could have hit a home run the way that we did in terms of the ability to bring back a guy that checks all those boxes with him. And because of that, he's extremely comfortable. He knows he's loved here. He knows what his role is. And make no mistake, Meechie is undoubtedly a leader on this team, if not the leader of this team. I don't really say that. This guy's our captain. I don't do that, really. I think as things happen organically is the best way for those things to happen. And again, he has a tremendous leadership role on this team, along with a couple other guys. But he knows that, he's comfortable with that, and then we have a tremendous relationship. So that stuff was pretty easy, honestly, to get figured out.
Coach, you get things rolling in early November, taking on North Carolina A&T. You've got the Greenbrier tip-off, where you'll see a couple of notable teams like Butler and Northwestern. You got Virginia Tech in the ACC Challenge, of course Clemson, but all the other non-conference games. What was maybe the philosophy behind scheduling the teams that you decided before you get into conference play this year?
Yeah, again, we have 12 new faces. 12 faces on this team that were not on the team last year, and so I think there's a component of challenging yourself. I think there's also a component of and this was before I knew I was going to have 12 guys that out of those next 7, I don't know who's ahead of whom. So you need to figure some things out in some of these games, and that's not to say that you're going to roll out of bed and beat anybody. But you do need to have a little buffer in a couple of these games that you can play this guy's extended minutes. You can play this combination of players. You can see if this guy can play that position. I think those are things that are very important in determining what your team is ultimately going to look like. And the other thing is, as you look at our league, we had 18 conference games last year, and I think 13 were quad 1 games and 5 were quad 2 out of all of our games last year. So, just the way our league is, at some point there's not non-conference and conference. At some point you look down at what you did and you played a ridiculous amount of quad 1 games on a season. And so we'll have some tough challenges and some good teams. Those teams are all well coached. You look at Virginia Tech, Clemson, NCAA tournament team, what they've done at Northwestern, and obviously Thad Matta at Butler is a tremendously experienced and proven coach. So none of those will be pushovers. Those will all be real challenges. And then you add in we're doing NC State in our exhibition game. We're scrimmaging Georgia Tech. Both of those games are typically games that you use mid-major type teams or lower level teams even for those. We're doing high major teams in both our scrimmage as well as our exhibition games. So those are 2 more challenges for us.
Give us an assessment. I think most people are curious on the front court. We kind of understand the back court. Eli Ellis, we've seen him and studied him for years now, even though this will be his first start. Michi's been around. Cam was here. But I think your unknown for a lot of people that are listening today is your front court. Give us a little breakdown of guys you brought in, like Elijah. Both. I think it's Eli and Elijah and several of your front court guys that you're excited about.
Yeah, if we look at some of the more experienced guys, let's take the young guys out of the mix, and let's focus more on some of the experienced guys. You got guys like Miles Studi, who we've mentioned, who is a very versatile player. He can give you some minutes at the forward as well as the guard. We got guys like Elijah Strong, who you mentioned, who's played a lot of minutes. He's an experienced guy. He's super versatile, particularly on the offensive end. I think the fans are going to be in for a real surprise with what he's capable of doing offensively. We added some size, and Carissa Sindoko is a 7-footer, and he's a sturdy, rugged 7-footer. You got guys like Norton Kapich, who's another very skilled, versatile offensively at the forward/center. Any of these guys, a lot of them can play. For us, we're such into, everybody talks about positionless basketball. I've been on that for a long time, so I don't know what a center is or what you're going to do the things that you can do. If you're 7 feet, look at Colin Murray Boyles. We were running ball screens for him by the end of his career. So if you can come off ball screens, you're going to come off ball screens. If you can post, you're going to post, whether you're Eli Ellis or if you're Jordan Butler. It doesn't really matter. If you can shoot threes, you're going to shoot threes. So I think there's a good list of guys, especially our experienced guys. But then even with those young guys, you look at a guy like E.J. Walker and some guys like Hayden Simeon, and we've got a good group of guys that are versatile. Practices, as I should say, are extremely competitive, and guys will be fighting for minutes. It's a fine line to walk between fighting every day for minutes and then cheering the guy on as we get to games that's out there playing the minutes that you would like. So, but it should be it's a fun, really fun group in both the backcourt and a group of front court guys too.
Well, Coach, we appreciate it. No, you got to get back to getting ready for the season, but certainly appreciate you taking about 15 minutes out today to join us, give us a little breakdown, and hopefully before the season starts we can grab you one more time and even get into a little bit NBA talk with you.
Yeah, I'd love to do it. Make sure. It's the funny thing is it's always like, wow, you got so many things going on. It's hard to schedule these things, and then when you get to doing it, and you have a lot of fun doing it and talking about some fun things. So let's make sure we make it happen again between now and the time we play.
Well, we definitely will. Keep that stroke going there. Look for a few more videos of you knocking it down and beating Kerry Rich in a 3-point contest, and we'll catch up soon.
I'm going to try to extend my range on the next one. So.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay.
Take care. Lamont Paris, South Carolina men's basketball coach. We'll come back. We'll talk a few things about he said, get back into some football. You're listening to the Halftime Show.
Time right here for the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder with First Palmetto Bank. Looking for a mortgage guru? Jacob Crowder has got you covered. He's helped so many 107.5 game listeners. He can help you as well. We at the game personally recommend him. Owner and operator right here in the Midlands, Jacob has local decision makers, which means quick and precise underwriting and processing. If you're looking to make a move, give Jacob a call at 803-719-1005 or email him at jcrowder@firstpalmetto.com. Interest rates have stabilized as well as the local housing market, and now is a good time to buy a house. Jacob and First Palmetto Bank have products to help home buyers. If you're considering building a home, they have no-nonsense construction loans that fit your needs. Again, his number is 803-719-1005, and Jacob's MLS number is 198432. First Palmetto Bank is a member of FDIC and an equal housing lender.
Thank you again, the head men's basketball coach, Lamont Paris, joining us this afternoon. We'll get that up on the podcast page in case you're just tuning in. You're like, I missed it. Solid about 16 minutes there with him. And I wanted to look, and I told Tyler this off air. I think if anybody that listens to me knows over the last 9 years, I don't care to come in and have coaches come on and do a press conference essentially and ask, hey, what do you know?
We hear plenty of that stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I prefer to cut up and learn about coaches' mac and cheese recipe and talk stories and stuff. But when even I don't feel like I know this basketball team, rightfully so, you just heard him mention it. I want to personally hear more about what they have and what they look like. And I'm fast. Look, Eli Ellis. Again, coach has other obligations, and Lord knows I'd have loved to kept him for a full hour. It feels like I've heard about Eli Ellis for 10 years now.
I've been here for 3 years, and I've heard about him at least in that time frame a lot. Seeing the highlights again on Overtime Elite and what his potential is, and was it last year when he got into the little spat with somebody and that kind of went viral? And again, he's doing things with Mr. Beast and all that kind of stuff. So he's well known before he ever set foot on campus here at South Carolina. And again, looks like a very special talent. Looks like he has a lot of skills and abilities. And we'll be excited to see it on display coming up this year. Now again, he didn't specifically say who those 5 guys were that have separated themselves, so we don't know if he's in that 5 or in the other 7. But again, he's going to be a guy that's generating a lot of buzz because of the reputation that he's garnered before he ever got here, and hopefully he lives up to the potential that he has coming out of high school.
Yeah, and again, that's why I said I want to see that, and I wanted to get an opinion on how. We just didn't have time. I wanted to ask Coach about, how do you have conversations with him about, like, don't try and impress everybody. Just go be yourself.
Yeah.
Because, you're right. He's a what is it, a TikTok phenomenon and everything.
He's viral. He's everywhere. And he's got hundreds of thousands of followers and all that kind of stuff, and can make all kinds of shots from all over the place from his a time before South Carolina, and that's great. But again, you're going into the toughest league in all of college basketball, so you can get humbled real quick. And I'm sure Paris and all of his assistants have done their best job to prepare him for what's coming and say, hey man, this ain't Overtime Elite anymore.
No, it's not. SEC is entirely different. And then the question I did get to. And we've talked leadership this week, leadership on football, but leadership in basketball. How does Meechie Johnson reacclimating himself? And you heard Coach Paris say it there, like, hey, he's comfortable in who he is, and the players there are comfortable in who Meechie is for him to come back in. And I think when I talk about the football team, Tyler, and I ask, is there an alpha male, a guy who you can be a great leader, but when your teammate messes up, you kind of turn your head the other way.
Sure.
You don't go get in their face and hold them accountable. I always said that it takes a great leader because they understand when you're between the lines and you're playing, other players have to understand, hey, that guy's upset with me here. He's not my friend anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He doesn't hate me off the court, off the field, whatever. And Meechie is that kind of guy where he holds his teammates accountable. It's one of the reasons I love Jimmy Butler so much. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Butler rubs people the wrong way, but he holds people accountable because he wants them to work hard.
Yeah, and when you have a guy, because he's been playing basketball for 5-6 years now at the college level, like he has the experience that people are going to naturally turn to look for that kind of guidance. And again, Meechie, from what we know from his first time around South Carolina, is very much a team guy. Like you mentioned a little bit earlier, even when he's having a bad day, he's somebody that wasn't afraid to hype up his teammates and be engaged with what's going on in the huddle, even if he wasn't out there on the court making plays. And I don't expect that to be any different this year. So again, what he is on the court, I think we have a really good idea. And hopefully it's the same kind of guy off the court as well, or at least, when he's on the bench or whatever, that, is still involved and still helping out the team any way that he can.
I'll just say this. I'll be interested to see the impact that Meechie Johnson has on a guy like Cam Scott, because Cam Scott's got a lot of potential, all the potential in the world. Cam Scott's got to have that kind of dog in him. He's got to have that kind of killer mentality, that different personality. And Meechie brings that. So can Meechie impart some of that on Cam Scott, who again's got so much basketball potential and has so much talent? but maybe the mindset needs to evolve and change to fit that of playing in the SEC. But we'll continue to talk about them. Hopefully we'll grab Coach one more time. I was interested really hearing about the front court. I have no clue about their front court players. Like, I don't know what they're going to look like with E.J. Walker, with Elijah Strong, the big kid that he said, the 7-footer that comes in, you're right, is Jordan Butler taking steps forward. Norton, he said, I'm going to have to go back and listen myself to hear how he pronounced some names. But what does that front court look like moving forward?
Yeah, well, again, it's going to be a wait-and-see process for everything. And, again, that's where you can create your excitement from the unknown, right? And we're going to figure this out hopefully pretty quickly with what this team is, and hopefully you get off to a better start than you did a year ago. And, again, the non-conference slate sets up well. You have some challenges in there.
That was a great question. I wanted to ask that. I'm glad you did about the schedule because, look, the schedule, you got some games. You mentioned it, Virginia Tech, Clemson, Butler, Northwestern. The schedule, though, sets up to be off to a great start when you get to conference play.
Yeah.
I mean, 9-10 wins, great start.
Yeah, if nothing else, for building confidence in what is a very new-look team across the board and creating that chemistry, gelling, all that kind of stuff that you talked about that's very important. And hopefully that's going to be the case because, again, you better have it figured out by the time January comes around because you get thrown right into the thick of things.
803-404-6100. That's how you can weigh in if you want to do so. We'll come back, get back into some football discussion. You're listening to Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain David Dare. It is the Halftime Show.
Yeah, I just think it was, well, number one, when you lose yards on early downs, then it's hard to run the ball on second and long. We just got to be better overall. I mean, it's all of us. It's coaching and playing better. It's up front. It's the backs. It's it's a little bit of all of us. It's frustrating because we had drives where we were moving the ball and got the ball in the end zone, and we had drives where we were moving it and foul on the goal line and lose yards, and so it's just overall I'm not going to say it's just one thing here or another, but yes, we definitely have to run the ball better and coach the running game better, and calling it better and have good balance, all that kind of stuff.
Those were the words yesterday, Tyler Head, of Mike Shula trying to tell us why they're struggling to run the football. What did you learn from that?
Did we learn anything?
No.
I don't think we did. Shula's not the most insightful when it comes to his pressers. And look, a lot of coaches give you coach speaky type of answers. And look, he is very aware that there's a problem running the football, as is everybody inside that building. And I don't doubt that they're trying to fix it, but we just haven't seen the results on the field as of yet. And you feel like you have an opportunity this weekend going up a defense that has struggled against the run to maybe crack something open and, again, maybe figure something out for the rest of SEC play. And I hope we see it. But, we're going to have to see it to believe it, I guess.
Yeah, again, I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. To me, it is truly prove it week. And Tyler, I asked you, and again, I'll say it. There could be a lot of you out there who are like, Bill, we're past prove it week. They had Vanderbilt. They had South Carolina State. They had Vanderbilt. They had Missouri. Those were prove-it weeks.
Sure.
Week 5, you are who you are. So if that's the case, I think y'all threw this out there earlier. I think y'all did. I can't remember. Do you just look around and go, all right, Saturday night, Lenoris, get that arm good and loosened up, buddy. You're throwing it. I mean, you have to have some semblance, something
Sure.
of a running game. But are we looking at a 30, 35, 40 pass game from Lenore Sellers where Mike Shula said, because there's two ways to look at it. Like, Shula don't either want to address it or he's not real sure what the issue is.
Yeah, I guess you got to have that plan in your back pocket. If you do have to go down that route again, I think you have a better opportunity to run against these guys compared to what you've had, the last 2 weeks. So hopefully, again, you can find something in there. But I don't know. Again, I don't know what to expect out of this offense this week. And it could look, back to form from a year ago and say, hey, we finally figured things out. Or it could be right in line with what we've seen through the first 4 weeks of the regular season. And earlier on this morning, we had Parker Fleming, whose stats are on Twitter, very good at deep dive analytics and numbers and stuff like that. And I asked him the question, for somebody that deals with numbers and stuff, at what point do you really know what a team is deep into a season? Because, again, we're 4 weeks in. A lot of teams have played FCS and, G5 and all that kind of stuff. Carolina's a rare exception where they've played 3 and now 4, Power 4 teams to start the year with only one, FCS team mixed in there. And he said, once you get about 5 games in against FBS opponents, then you get a real idea of what your team is. Well, that game is going to be LSU, right? And I have a feeling LSU is probably going to be an indicator of things Carolina is not doing well more than, what they are doing well. So, again, this very much is a prove-it type of game for me coming up on Saturday. But, okay, if you're going to show us anything, this is the kind of team to show it against before we head into the bye week.
The other thing that will be interesting, again, Carolina calls tonight. I don't know if Shane Beamer will kind of address this or not. 7 o'clock, you can check him out right here on 107.5 The Game. I know that's over at Backstreet's Bar and Grill. And does he address what they're looking at with the offensive line? Last week, you moved Nolan Hay into the starting position at center.
Yep.
Case and Henry got injured, I don't know what, the second or third play.
It was pretty quick.
By the way, if you just assume Henry got injured very quickly against Vanderbilt, sounds like he tried to go and then got injured again. He's listed on the injury report as doubtful, as is Nolan. I think you're kind of going with the assumption Tree Babalade is going in there.
Yeah, at right tackle.
At right tackle, which to me, again, and I'm not putting down Case and Henry or anybody, and I don't see practices, and I don't understand how to grade offensive linemen. I don't think there's a drop-off there. I think you're okay. But what do you do at the center position?
Yeah.
That, to me, and John Strickland, by the way, hit me up. Our good buddy, my good buddy, and you're going to meet him, John, former offensive line.
I think I've met him once before.
He apologized. So if you see John out there and about, I had texted him to have him on today.
Oh.
he responded and then responded again during our show. He said, I never pressed send on the
okay.
above. So
Well.
I'm going to see maybe if we can slip John in tomorrow.
Okay, sure.
To get him on to get an offensive lineman's assessment of what he sees. But the center position is important. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure that hasn't been the truly weak link on the South Carolina offensive line the last few years. It's interesting to me, and I go back, and I'm talking out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking out loud without remembering, there was a stat in the preseason of the NFL, Tyler, if you remember that Rashawn Lee had done something really good in preseason for, I believe it was the Saints.
Yeah, the Saints.
Am I right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Do you remember the stat? Do you remember off the top of your head as I say this out loud?
Did he have like one of the best grades of interior offensive linemen, I think, in the preseason?
Yeah, it was something. And he played center, and it felt like last year that was a slight weak link at center.
Sure.
I can't help but wonder, and with Boaz Stanley, is there something being taught there at the center position that's a struggle?
And look, again, the offensive line's been a consistent issue in the 3 years that I've been here. So it's not just a one-year type of thing. There's something internally that's not being done the right way that does need to be corrected. But you made the change last weekend to put Nolan Hay at center for a reason. And again, Boaz Stanley still valuable enough to be moved over to the right guard spot. But there's a reason you made the change. And even when Hay went down, you brought in Rodney Newsom to play center as opposed to Boaz Stanley. So there's something about what Boaz Stanley was doing at the center spot they didn't feel comfortable with, and now they went to their now third option once Nolan Hay got hurt. So maybe, and again, you're looking at what perceived to be your new starter at center maybe not being available this weekend because Nolan Hay is off to a doubtful. So is that considered a weak link once again because now you're down to your third option there? I don't know, but the interior of your offensive line is what you're replacing from a year ago, right? Like that was... because Torrey Simpkins was your best offensive lineman a year ago. Rashawn Lee was there experienced, and then
Kamar
Bell was the other one at the other guard spot that all left. And I think we talked more about the tackles and their issues a year ago than that interior, where now I feel like we're talking about the interior outside of
point.
Josiah Thompson is having his struggles, but Cason Henry was doing fine. He's had a okay season. You know what I mean?
I'll go with
I'm not going to say it's great. I say it's been okay. Right, but I feel like more of the focus has been on what's happening on the interior offensive line, which backs up why they decided to shift things around last game.
Be interesting. No Trovon Ball not on the list. Okay, Marquis Anderson, who I thought came in and played okay earlier this year. Maybe again, we'll get John Strickland's opinion on that, what he sees. But yeah, you got. They're not lacking. Here's the other thing. And again, recruiting nerd here, so. I could very well could be wrong. You're not lacking 4-star prospects.
No.
Trovon Ball was a 4-star prospect. Marquis Anderson was a highly, highly thought of prospect to come in.
Yeah, I just think it was. Well, number one, when you lose yards on early downs, and
just wanted to
it's hard to run the ball.
Interrupt us there.
Yeah. Well, it's random. The old gremlins. That's Tommy Moody. It's Tommy Moody just jumping in to say
interject a little bit. Hey.
That's Tommy Moody interjecting to say we're being a little negative. We need to be more positive. I tell you what, we'll come back. We'll have a positive finish on a Thursday.
Sure.
How's that?
Sounds good.
We'll find something positive, something to make your day. You're listening to Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain David Dare. It is the Halftime Show. Something positive. I got something for you. I got a really actually I got a really great positive thing I'll get to here in just a second from last night that should be shared a little bit more. But let me just let you know, tomorrow, 2:15, we'll have John Strickland on.
Nice.
We'll bring in an offensive line guru who can help us a little bit, maybe understand. How about that?
Yeah. Can we see football hands over the phone?
No, we'll get him in studio soon.
Okay.
We'll get him football hands over the phone. Yeah, a little difficult. He says, yeah, maybe get him on a team. Maybe I don't know. We'll figure something out.
I always enjoyed him and Preston going back and forth, one perspective of the line compared to the other.
Yeah. We'll get Strickland in. We'll talk to him tomorrow. 2:15. We got a busy show tomorrow, by the way. Give me the rundown again. I'm learning.
So we'll have Brian Edwards, Vegas Insider at 12:30. Chris Deary, Kentucky High School football at 1:15, and now John Strickland at 2:15. Again, we got huge matchups all across college football. Obviously, more into the Kentucky game. We'll see what Beamer says tonight on Carolina Calls, and man, it's gonna be a fun weekend.
Yeah, we'll get into the big picture of college football tomorrow. Penn State, Oregon, Alabama, Georgia. That's going to be a lot of fun over the weekend. Other games, Southern Cal, Illinois is just kind of entertaining.
Under the radar.
Ole Miss, LSU is going to be 3:30. Man, that might be actually the game of the weekend. Don't be shocked if on Monday, and I'm just talking about great games.
Sure, yeah. The most fun 4 quarters could come out of that game.
Because I'll be honest, I feel like we could blink and Oregon just throttles Penn State.
Sure, I could see that.
I feel like I could blink and Georgia's just Alabama's not like.
Yeah.
It feels like Ole Miss, LSU are very, very even teams that you're going to get a good game between.
And so Trinidad Chambliss going to get started up again this upcoming weekend. And, Austin Samuels started a couple weeks ago. I almost kind of wonder, is this just Trinidad Chambliss' job now? Because he has played really good these past couple weeks. And it's like, man, do you ride with the hot hand? Do you go with the guy that you thought was your starter before the season? How do you play this going forward? And if Chambliss has another great game tomorrow, or Saturday, I feel like that kind of locks it up for him, right? Maybe.
I'm pull for chaos. That way there's anger that nobody knows what's going on when South Carolina goes to Oxford. What's the old saying? You get 2 quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback. Pull for chaos.
Yeah, I guess so. But
if you're a South Carolina fan,
that's almost to me the equivalent of the Tua Jalen Hurts thing. It's like, well, it's not that you don't have 2 quarterbacks; you just have 2 really, really good ones that are hard to decide between.
It'll be fun. We'll get into a lot of that, and then also tomorrow, we'll really do a little bit of a look at. Okay, there was a period earlier this decade that South Carolina, Kentucky. I think the rivalry. And Beth from Lamar earlier said that term is overused in a text. But there was a period where I think this really had peaked out as rivalry because Kentucky was beating South Carolina. We were like, that's got to stop.
Yeah, it was like 7 out of 8 or something like that.
Is it still a rivalry? I love the matchup. I think for some reason I've grown in appreciation of the matchup. But we'll have this discussion tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is this a game now that we know our permanent opponents, I love it. I'm all for it. I kind of want to embrace it more.
Sure.
I want y'all, the listeners, to embrace it more. I think we need to embrace the fact that, Kentucky, we don't like these guys.
Yeah.
They're mean. They're nasty. They're ugly. There's nothing good about them.
Yeah, and I think it's taken a different angle in the Beamer era, going back to, the sunglasses thing. And, hey, sometimes that's all it takes to kind of take things to a different level. And, again, thankfully, Carolina's handled their business the last 3 years, and we hope that's 4 coming up on Saturdays. It almost kind of seems like a rivalry of streaks as of late that you obviously hope Carolina can keep going this weekend.
Something positive. And I think this is going to be positive.
All right.
Mariners game last night. You know what happened?
Oh, dang, what did Cal Raleigh do?
He did what he does.
Hit a home run.
Big dumper. Is Cal Raleigh the most underappreciated athlete in sports right now?
Yeah, because he plays for the Mariners.
They won the West last night.
They did, but it's very much like the Mike Trout syndrome.
Exactly.
Of he's on the West Coast, and outside of SportsCenter highlights, you probably don't get to see a lot of him. As opposed, if he was a Yankee, right, he'd be everywhere. And
give it a few years.
Probably or Met. The nickname obviously garners him to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But if he didn't have the nickname, I feel like, hey, he's that guy that hits a lot of home runs out west that I don't get to see that much.
Does 60 home runs mean anything in baseball anymore? Did we lose this? Because he hit 59 and 60 last night.
Yeah, I think it's pretty significant. But, I mean, maybe it's not the same in terms of home run chases of years past, but
Okay.
I think it's still pretty special.
Count me in. Cal Raleigh and the Mariners going to be in the playoffs. Love it. For some reason, nostalgic all of a sudden. MLB Network, the little MLB package that I got this year has been phenomenal. I've actually watched over the last few weeks, being at home and everything. I've watched more, and I wasn't sleeping good, so I'd stay up and watch Mariners games, and I've gone out of my way to actually watch him. I didn't catch the game last night. He hit home runs 59 and 60 last night. This guy, like you mentioned it, Trout was like just.
Well, the Angels were never great.
The
That's
Angels weren't
thing.
great. He didn't have a nickname.
Yeah.
He was more known for being a Eagles fan than being an Angel.
He didn't
or
have
is
like
more known.
He didn't have like the personality to match the play.
Right.
And I think, and again, they made playoffs once with him or
Yeah,
something like that.
and he did not do well
He
in the
didn't do
playoffs.
well, so it's like you haven't had a chance to see him nationally a ton. And for a lot of people, again, Mariners game's not easy to watch unless you have the MLB Network package. A lot of people are going to be really watching him for the first time when the playoffs start here next week.
And then on top of all that, I think there's people my age that have a nostalgia for the Mariners because we saw the Mariners get really good in the late 90s with King Griffey Jr., with Jay Buhner, with Randy Johnson, with Edgar Martinez, and to see them at the Kingdome. That was a lot of fun. But did you see what else happened last night? All right, now I wasn't around for this situation, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you talked about it. The situation down in Miami where the Philly hit the home run. I can't remember the player's name for the Philly. The Phillies, there was the little brouhaha in right field between the woman and the dad and the son.
Yeah.
Okay, last night, home run number 60 by Cal Raleigh. And this is on Barstool Sports. Home run number 60. That ball's probably got some value to it. You can probably get something out of that ball, right?
Of course.
Cal Raleigh probably wants it. There is video, and the guy has not been identified, but they've got a good picture of him. Big smile on his face. Looks very happy wearing a Mariners jersey. Caught the home run. Uncontested. No real problem. Everybody kind of got out of his way. Caught the home run. Handed it to a kid back behind him.
Oh, awesome.
Just turned around and hit, not his kid.
Sure,
and the
just
reason
a
everybody
kid.
knows that is because the Mariners instantly had team employees. They were going for the ball,
Sure.
and they instantly grabbed the kid and the kid's family. And at least right now, information has not been put out, but to negotiate, to have Cal
you gotta
Raleigh
give him
negotiate for that
Sure,
ball.
give him a signed jersey.
Good
take some
Samaritan,
photos.
something good to end
yeah,
with.
no, that's awesome. Yeah, the Phillies lady definitely having a tough time living that one down. But it's
Fortunately,
good to
Philly
see.
Karen,
It's good to see some people are still kind to children, which is nice.
Yeah, really cool last night. So a guy out at the Mariners catches home run number 60. And as it says, a historic 60th home run ball. Really cool. Cal Raleigh, check him out. Playoffs, final weekend. We mentioned it. Ryder Cup this weekend, college football, NFL, final weekend of Major League Baseball. We will get into all of it tomorrow.
Yep.
Well, I'm fired up. I guess I'll go take a nap now. Captain Dave, Tyler Head, I think we had a nice 3-hour program. You got your Firehouse subs to take home?
I think we've eaten most of it.
And I think I saw Terry Ford out there halfway into it. Y'all have a great day.